Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're tackling something that's been kind of bubbling up in the food world.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like everywhere you turn these days, there's talk about this whole beef tallow versus seed oils thing.
It definitely feels like it's taken over the conversation.
We saw that news about Steak and Shake
Oh, yeah, their big announcement.
going back to cooking their fries in beef tallow.
It definitely caught people's attention.
They did, and then of course RFK Jr. has been weighing in with some pretty strong opinions about seed oils.
His comments have definitely added fuel to the fire.
They have, and it's left a lot of people scratching their heads, I think, wondering what to believe.
Yeah, for sure. So much conflicting information out there.
Exactly, and that's why we're doing this deep dive.
Yeah, gotta break it down.
We want to equip you with the knowledge you need to make informed choices about your diet and your health. And speaking of equipping you with knowledge, if you're the kind of person who loves to go beyond the surface, who's not just looking for the what, but also the why.
The kind of person who's driven to learn and grow.
Absolutely. That's who we're all about here at Necessary Cookies.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We go deep on a wide range of topics, always aiming to provide those valuable insights that can help you on your journey to success.
Those aha moments that can really shift your perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if that sounds like something you're into, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, Necessary Cookies.
You won't regret it.
So let's get back to this beef tallow versus seed oils debate.
Okay, let's dig in.
For this deep dive, we're going to be referencing a recent article from Verywell Health.
It's a great resource.
It really is. It lays out the arguments on both sides really well. And what I appreciate is that they brought in experts.
Yeah, actual nutrition scientists and a professor of medicine.
Exactly. So we're not just dealing with opinions here. We're looking at evidence-based perspectives.
Which is so important when it comes to health and nutrition.
It really is.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with all of this?
Well, I think the natural starting point is that whole Steak and Shake situation.
Oh, yeah, the RFK, the fries thing.
Exactly. That's what really kicked off this renewed interest in beef tallow and all the controversy surrounding it.
Okay, so remind us what RFK Jr. has actually been saying about seed oils.
Well, he's made some pretty strong claims publicly suggesting that these commonly used seed oils, like, your grapeseed, your sunflower, your corn, even canola oil. He's basically saying they're unknowingly poisoning Americans.
Wow. Unknowingly poisoning. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's definitely a statement that's got people talking and debating.
It has. So before we get too deep into RFK Jr.'s viewpoint, let's back up a bit.
Sure.
What exactly is beef tallow?
Right. Good point. Not everyone might be familiar with it. So beef tallow is basically rendered animal fat.
Okay, rendered animal fat.
Imagine taking the solid fat from around the organs of cows or sheep and you melt it down.
Okay, so like the fat you trim off a steak, kind of?
Yes, sort of, but it's more specifically the fat that surrounds the organs.
Oh, okay, so it's not just any old fat.
No, it's a particular kind, and what's really important to understand about it is that it's super high in saturated fat.
Saturated fat, the stuff we've been told to avoid for years.
Right, exactly. For a long time, we were told to limit saturated fat because of its link to heart disease.
Wait, remember all the low-fat everything back in the day?
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting because beef tallow used to be really common in commercial frying, like in fast food.
Really? So back in
Yeah.
the day, all those fries we were eating were probably cooked in beef tallow.
Most likely, yeah. But then as concerns about saturated fat grew, they switched over to things like vegetable oils.
And now it feels like we've come full circle.
Kinda, yeah, with this whole back to basics trend.
So RFK Jr.'s argument is basically that these modern seed oils are bad for us, and we should go back to using beef tallow because it's more traditional.
Yeah, that seems to be the gist of it. It ties into this idea that traditional foods are inherently healthier.
Which is a belief we see a lot in the wellness community.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But when we look at what the experts in the Verywell Health article are saying, the picture gets a little more complicated.
Yeah, they don't seem to be on board with the whole beef tallow as a health food thing.
Right. There's one expert in particular, Caitlin Dow. She's a PhD and a senior nutrition scientist, and she basically says there's no good evidence to support claims that beef tallow has any health benefits.
And not only that, she's actually concerned about the high saturated fats content.
Yeah, she points out the link between diets high in saturated fat and an increased risk of heart disease, which is something we've known about for a while, but it's good to be reminded of it.
It is, and the American Heart Association has specific recommendations about how much saturated fat we should be eating, right?
They did say to aim for less than 6% of your daily calories from saturated fat.
So if you're on a 2,000-calorie diet, that's about 1 tablespoon of beef tallow per day.
That's right. And as Dr. Dow points out, a lot of those homemade French fry recipes use way more than a tablespoon of tallow.
So even if some people find the taste appealing, We have to be mindful of that saturated fat content.
Definitely taste isn't everything.
Now, I know people who are pro-beef tallow do make some arguments in its favor.
Yeah, like what?
Well, the article mentioned that it has a high smoke point.
Oh, right. Smoke point. That's an important factor in cooking.
Can you explain why that is?
Sure. So the smoke point of a fat or oil is basically the temperature at which it starts to break down in smoke.
Okay, so if you heat it past its smoke point.
It can start to taste bad and release potentially harmful compounds.
So the higher the smoke point, the better for things like frying.
Exactly. And beef tallow does have a pretty high smoke point, which makes it good for frying.
But the article also pointed out that a lot of seed oils have high smoke points too.
That's right. So it's not like beef tallow has a unique advantage in that regard.
Okay, so it's not just about the smoke point then.
No, there's more to this story.
This whole debate has gotten really heated online.
Oh, yeah, especially in certain wellness circles.
There are some influencers who are really anti-seed oil.
They've even dubbed a group of them the Hateful Eight.
The Hateful Eight.
It's a bit dramatic, but it definitely grabs your attention.
So which oils are we talking about here?
The Hateful Eight includes canola corn, cottonseed, grapeseed, soy rice, bran sunflower, and safflower oils.
Okay, so pretty much all the common ones you find in the grocery store.
Yeah, pretty much. And their main argument is that the omega-6 fatty acids in these oils are unstable.
Omega-6 fatty acids.
Yeah, and they say that when you heat these oils, the omega-6s break down into toxic compounds.
Toxic compounds? That sounds scary.
It does, and they claim that these compounds lead to inflammation in the body.
And inflammation is bad, right?
Well, chronic inflammation can be linked to all sorts of health problems.
So are these seed oils really that bad for us?
Well, the Very Well Health article presents a different perspective.
Okay, lay it on me.
They basically say that seed oils themselves aren't the problem.
Mm.
It's more about the context in which we consume them.
What do you mean?
Think about it. Seed oils are in a ton of processed foods.
True, those packaged snacks and convenience meals.
Exactly. And those foods are often loaded with other unhealthy ingredients like sugar, salts, and all sorts of additives.
So it's not necessarily the seed oils themselves, but the company they keep.
Exactly. And the article also points out that linoleic acid, the main type of omega-6 fatty acid in these oils, doesn't actually increase inflammation like some people claim.
Really? So that whole argument about omega-6s causing inflammation?
It's more nuanced than that.
Interesting. So some research even suggests that linoleic acid might actually lower the risk of heart disease.
Which is kind of the opposite of what those anti-seed oil folks are saying.
It is. So switching from beef tallow to seed oils might actually be good for your heart.
Potentially, yeah.
Wow, this is a lot to unpack.
It is. There's a lot of misinformation out there.
And Dr. Dow brings up another interesting point.
What's that?
She's worried that this whole beef tallow trend could spread beyond fast food.
Oh, yeah. Like, what if it starts showing up in other foods?
Exactly. She's concerned that people might start using it more broadly in cooking, and that could lead to an overall increase in saturated fat intake.
Which wouldn't be good for public health.
No, it wouldn't. And she also mentions the potential impact on dietary guidelines.
Oh, right. Dietary guidelines. Those are important.
They influence what's served in schools, hospitals, even prisons.
So if there's a big shift towards animal fats like beef tallow.
It could affect those guidelines and potentially not in a good way.
Right. It's something to consider.
The Very Well Health article also features the perspective of Christopher Gardner.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Gardner, he's a professor of medicine and a nutrition scientist at Stanford.
Exactly. So he's coming at this from a very scientific angle.
What does he say?
Well, he's basically saying that the evidence supporting replacing saturated fats like beef tallow with unsaturated fats like seed oils is super strong.
Like decades of research strong.
Exactly. And he finds this whole resurgence of beef tallow a bit puzzling.
Yeah, from a scientific standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
But he does acknowledge that people's food choices aren't always driven by science.
True taste plays a big role.
And some people just really like the flavor of beef tallow.
They do. And Dr. Gardner also points to the role of conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah. There are those who believe there's some kind of agenda behind promoting seed oils.
Like some big conspiracy to keep people unhealthy.
Right, and they see beef tallow as this pure, natural alternative.
It's a complex issue for sure.
It is. So for our listeners out there, what would you say is the key takeaway from all of this?
I think the main thing to remember is that the experts we've talked about are pretty much in agreement that the high saturated fat in beef tallow is a legitimate concern for heart health.
And that swapping it out for seed oils could actually be a positive step.
Especially if you're using those seed oils to replace animal fats in your diet.
And as Dr. Dow reminds us, it's not just about what information you're getting, but also where you're getting it from.
Yeah, we have to be critical thinkers, especially online.
Because algorithms can create these echo chambers where we're only exposed to information that confirms our existing beliefs.
And that can be dangerous when it comes to health and nutrition.
Absolutely. So, to sum up this deep dive, it seems like beef tallow might be having its moment in the spotlight.
But the science still points to the risks of its high saturated fat content.
And the demonization of seed oils is largely unfounded.
Yeah, it's more nuanced than that.
It is, and having this kind of nuanced understanding can help you make informed choices about your health.
Exactly. It's all about empowering yourself with knowledge.
And if you're looking for more knowledge, more inspiration, more insights to help you become the best version of yourself,
Then you know where to find us.
head over to our YouTube channel, Necessary Tookies.
We go deep on a wide range of topics, always aiming to provide valuable content that can help you grow and succeed.
So hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey of exploration and discovery.
We can't wait to see you there.
And as you go about your day, we encourage you to think critically about the information you encounter online.
Especially when it comes to your health.
Do your own research, be skeptical of sensationalized claims, and always seek out reliable evidence-based information.
Your health is worth it.
It definitely is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.